Good morning. My name is Chris NDIKUMANA. I'm the host of the Kanguka broadcast. You're about to listen to today's broadcast translated from Kirundi to English. Be blessed.
Today's Monday, and I'd like to remind our new listeners that Kanguka is a Kirundi word, the language of Burundi, and it means wake up. The broadcast is available every weekday at 4 a.m. on the Kanguka website kanguka.com or on the Kanguka English channel on YouTube. Just type Kanguka, that's Kanguka. Every Monday, I like to thank all the people who pray for the Kanguka team. Whenever you pray in the name of Jesus in the morning, don't forget to mention the Kanguka team in your prayers because the prayers of God's children strengthen us. It's been almost 8 years that this broadcast has been airing every day without interruption, and it's all thanks to the prayers of God's children. Your prayers give us strength. There are many evil spirits fighting against this work, but your prayers pave the way for us. Your prayers give us strength, they encourage us, and they protect us. Please remember to also pray for the partners of Kanguka who contribute their resources to the advancement of this work. Pray for them as well so they can continue to support this work. As usual on Mondays, I like to talk about the guiding principles of Kanguka. The first principle is to accept the will of God, even if it's different from our own will. The second is to pray every day. And the third, it's forbidden to complain. Instead, we must give thanks in everything. Instead of complaining, you should give thanks to God in all things. If you're complaining, it means something isn't going well. When we tell you to not complain but to give thanks in all things, it means that you have to make a sacrifice to achieve that. It's not easy because if you're complaining, it means you're going through a challenging situation. But how can you give thanks to God in the midst of difficulties? Many people often say, how can I give thanks to God when I'm in a really bad situation? How can I give thanks to God when I've been kicked out of my house? How can I give thanks to God when I still don't have children? How can I give thanks to God when I'm not married yet? I want you to understand that it's by giving thanks to God in the midst of difficulties that you attract the glory of God. Every time you give thanks instead of complaining, you score a goal against Satan. Satan has a habit of bringing troubles into your life because he wants you to complain. But if you give thanks to God instead of complaining, Satan gets confused. He can't understand how you manage to give thanks in the midst of difficulties. That's why you shouldn't complain and you should give thanks to God in all things. I don't need to teach you how to give thanks to God for good things because you're already doing it. Even unbelievers give thanks when they receive good things which are pleasing to them. But all of us who believe in God, we must not only give thanks for the good things, but we must also give thanks in the midst of difficulties. If you've prayed in the name of Jesus and your situation takes a turn you didn't expect, you must understand that you still need to give thanks to God even in that situation. Today, I want you to read from Psalm 50. In verse 8, God said to the people of Israel, I do not rebuke you for your sacrifices or your burnt offerings, which are ever before me. It means that those sacrifices are not a problem. But in verse 14, it says, offer to God thanksgiving, and pay your vows to the Most High. I want to focus on the first part of the verse that says, offer to God thanksgiving. We need to learn to give thanks to God even when we don't feel like it. We must give thanks to God even when we're in a bad situation. You must understand that your thanksgiving is a sacrifice you offer to God. Sometimes you don't feel like giving thanks to God, but if you do it anyway, it touches the heart of God. You must learn to give thanks to God even when you don't feel like it because your thanksgiving is a sacrifice you offer to God, and it holds great value in His eyes. We're now in the teaching segment of the broadcast and we're going to continue our study of the Book of Kings, which started back on May 22nd. If you're new to Kanguka, you should check out the archive section so you can catch up on what we've learned so far. Last week, I told you we were going to spend a lot of time on chapter 3 because God revealed a lot of things to me about this chapter. We learned that we should pray and ask God for wisdom so we can discern what's most important. We saw that when Solomon became king, he hadn't received that special wisdom from God yet. He was a simple person trying to imitate what his father did. His father used to offer sacrifices, and Solomon wanted to imitate that by offering sacrifices anywhere. He didn't know that sacrifices had to be offered at the place where the Ark of the Covenant was. And the Ark of the Covenant is a symbol of Jesus Christ today. Solomon received special wisdom during the night through a dream. God gave him a revelation, and as soon as he woke up, he left Gibeon and he rushed to the tabernacle in Jerusalem because that's where the Ark of the Covenant was. When he arrived, he offered burnt offerings and thanksgiving, and he threw a feast for all his servants because he had already become wise. We saw how Solomon made a wise judgment when two prostitutes were fighting over a baby. Solomon used his wisdom and he commanded that the baby be cut in half to give each woman a piece. The real mother opposed the idea and she preferred to give her baby to the other woman. But the other woman insisted on cutting the baby in half. Solomon demonstrated his great wisdom by returning the baby to its true mother, and everyone was amazed by his wisdom. Verse 28 says that all of Israel heard about the king's judgment, and they feared him because they saw that God's wisdom was in him to guide him in his judgments. I had asked you to read up to chapter 11, and I hope you did. It's good to read ahead because it'll help you understand when I teach. I spent a lot of time on chapter 3, but I'll quickly go through the next few chapters. I won't cover them in depth. I hope that you're reading all these chapters. Remember, we're trying to understand the lessons these Old Testament books can teach us as people living under the New Covenant today. Now, let's move on to chapter 4. There's not much to say about chapter 4. From verse 1 to verse 28, we see a list of the high officials who served King Solomon. And from verse 29 to verse 34, they talk about Solomon's wealth. He had lots of money and he had a lot of wisdom. To really understand the vastness of Solomon's wisdom, read verse 29. It says, "And God gave Solomon wisdom and exceedingly great understanding, and largeness of heart like the sand on the seashore." No one can count the sand on the seashore. God used that comparison to show that Solomon's wisdom was beyond comprehension. Verse 34 says that people from all nations came to hear the wisdom of Solomon. It wasn't just ordinary folks who came to hear Solomon's wisdom. Even kings went to see him because they had heard about his wisdom. His wisdom was so renowned that everyone wanted to go and listen to it. God had given him extraordinary intelligence. But through this teaching, we'll see that intelligence alone is not enough. You also need humility because intelligence can lead you to become proud. It's great to have intelligence, but true intelligence is shown through humility. You need to understand the source of your intelligence. If you know that your intelligence comes from God, then you should humble yourself so that all the glory can go back to God. If you haven't read up to chapter 11 yet, keep reading. We'll continue this study tomorrow. May I bless you, and have a great day. If you're blessed or transformed by Kanguka teachings, you can send us a WhatsApp audio on +2567813777337.